we start with our first question, which is how do you connect a new trend into the product marketing communication in order to seize an opportunity?
Great question, Celia. Great question. So, today, obviously, things are changing quite a bit, right? There are lots of opportunities coming up that COVID has uncovered for many companies. And connecting trends into marketing communication is really important. But I want to point out that this has to be really authentic. And what does authentic mean? Authentic really today translates into there has to be outward signs of value, of commitment, of a brand really caring about their customer or to the cause that the brand is talking about or eschewing, right? This is really important. Why is it important? Well, because today with information everywhere, transparency is really key. And consumers can check up on your history, the brand heritage, brand ownership. So it's really important that brands be transparent. So let me give you a quick example. Today, one of the really big trends is inclusivity, right? That's really around the world, especially, coming out of North America. So the idea of this sort of creating makeup for all skin types and skin tones. Okay, many brands would say, well, we've been doing that, right? However, what's happening is that when communicating with these communities and ethnicities that look for these kind of products, the brands don't have a previous track record of communicating with them or committing to them. So what happens is, if this past communication is non-existent, it says that the brand really is kind of jumping on a trend. They haven't been transparent. And moving forward, they must be transparent about their efforts and their communications. So in this space, I think it's very advantageous to your customers. So indie brands really have an advantage right now because, they're really starting their narrative from scratch. So these small, medium-sized brands have a tremendous opportunity post-COVID because it's hard to turn a brand narrative around that really didn't support inclusivity into one that does now. So small or medium-sized companies who are new to the game or relatively new have a chance to create this new narrative. More importantly, they have a chance to really redefine imagery, right? And beauty is all about imagery. Super important.
Yes,
Consumers, consumers today really want to see real life imagery that's relatable and not necessarily what they've seen in the past of these sort of posed, Anglo glam photography that we've seen in fashion magazines for decades, right? Consumers are moving away from that. And an example of a beauty brand that's really doing well in that communication space is Glossier. They're doing a really good job to show, how their beauty products meet the needs of all different consumers in a very realistic way. They're not using, sort of traditional models, and they're doing extremely well.
I totally, you got very good point about the authenticity, which is really so true. And I think in a way it's really a advantage for a lot of smaller medium-sized brand because the reason for their success is because the authenticity, because they have something unique. So they should strengthen on that to use that as really to continue to that, but not lose it, right?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, it's very
Company get big and they lose their authenticity, and they
yes,
follow the trend. They're not really creating something unique.
yes, yes. And you know, the small and medium brands, I recommend they really should lean into that even more, because
Mm,
that gives them a distinct advantage, and it really shows their consumers that they really understand them, that they care about them,
right.
that they're, you know, in partnership with them.
Wisdom, yeah.
Mhm.
It's the creativity that brought them now to
Yes.
the position now, so they should continue. That's really great point. Our second question is, how do you position the brand well in the fast changing market?
Oh, another great question. Yes. We've seen quite a bit of changes in, you know, from 2019 to 2020
Oh
and now to
yes.
2021, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So I think, of course, capitalization plays a huge role in, you know, in being able to make those changes. Um, and, you know, positioning uh, has to do, as you know, with the real estate in the consumer's mind that your brand rents or owns, right? If we just think of your you know, your mind as this sort of, you know, giant city of some sort, and your brand owns a block, you know, in that city. So, you know, what happens when that market starts to change, right? That city starts to change. What do you do? Um, and I really recommend that brands pause for a moment, that, you know, every change that happens does not mean that your brand has to pivot to meet it.
Mm,
And that's very important to note. And it goes a little bit against the grain. Why?
mm,
Because the changes now are coming so fast that if your brand pivots to meet each and every one, it potentially can lose that block that it owns right now.
mm,
So you want to make sure and you know, anchor that first, before looking and seeing which changes your brand should engage in. So, for example, you know, auditing, I think your brand perception and communications is very, very helpful. We always say, you know, that whole look, listen, learn, you know, the idea of looking, observing your consumer more as they go through the changes, listening to how they're handling the changes and what their new needs are, and then pivoting to meet those. So
mm,
really, that involves checking when, where, how your consumer is engaging with your brand, especially in the digital realm, because COVID has accelerated that, right?
mm.
Across the world, COVID has really pushed everybody onto online. And people who weren't there before, you know, that's all they're doing now. When COVID is over, will people go back into the stores? Of course they will, but they won't give up online because of the convenience it affords,
Mhm.
the selection that it affords. You know, there are many reasons why online will continue to accelerate. So the key here is really understanding, you know, your customer, the micro cultures that are emerging, and the common needs that they share, but also the really nuanced way in which they might relate to your brand or to your product. You really need to focus on that to stay well positioned, but not only well positioned, ahead of the competition. So you really have to look, audit, do your audit, look around,
Mm,
see what's going on, listen to your customers' needs, but the nuances in the way that they express these needs, and then pivot to that in order to take advantage of these changes that, you know, that your brand can really take advantage of and shine, as opposed to trying to pivot every single time that there's a change that comes along.
This is very inspirational to me, actually. Also, because when I asked you that question, I was actually somehow in my mind and thinking you might, well, be the answer might be, oh, you need to be like fast, do, and be prepared and do this. But what you have just said, it's so important. That's what is this word is actually lack of right now. Everybody's running, follow the trend, try to adapt into the changing market. But then the most important thing is you really need to know your own position first, and then and take your absorb the it's just not always absorb to give how should I say it? It's just you put it perfectly, which is you have to fill the inner bucket first,
Yes,
right?
exactly,
Right.
exactly. Because when you do that, you can be even more agile. But
Mm,
first, you have to understand your own position. What are your strengths?
right,
You know,
right.
and
Yeah.
really move in a way that utilizes your strengths, so
Mm,
that when you're able to take advantage of these changes, um, and optimize them, maximize them, as opposed to just changing for change sake.
yes, yes, so true.
Mhm.
Yes. Um, well, then our next question is what kind of strategies would you recommend as an effective communication when a small company launch a new brand, like a new product?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. That's a great question too. And this is a great time to launch a product.
Mm,
Actually, even though people might say, "Oh my gosh, we're in the middle, of a pandemic." Yes, we are.
mm-hmm,
But we are going to come out of it. And out of the pandemic have emerged all of these new needs that the consumer is recognizing. And I think small companies in particular are poised to take advantage. So how would you do that, right? What strategies can
mm-hmm.
you use to effectively communicate and attract, not just engage your core audience, but attract and grow that audience, right?
Mm-mm.
So first, of course, it depends on the target consumer you're going after and the product that you are selling. I really think moving forward, um, the idea of research, and specifically microcultural research, is key to understanding, when, where, how your target consumer wants to receive messaging and
Mm-hmm.
be engaged. Now, this is going to become more and more important, because as the digital world splinters as well, so for example, you have your online store, you've got Instagram, you've got Facebook, you've got, all of these new digital outlets where you can advertise, communicate, sell your product. It's really important to understand where amongst all of that does your consumer engage, and when and why. So, consumer splintering has been around for a while. This is not a new thing,
Mm-hmm.
but social media has enabled all of these splintered voices to be louder. So ignoring them is probably not a good idea. So once you do an audit, the next step is getting a better understanding of the nuances of your target consumer. So their lifestyle, but more importantly, their codes and the visual signs that they use or they look for to authenticate that your product is the right one for them.
Mm-hmm.
So this is really critical to crafting effective messaging and communications. So basically, your small or medium-sized brand has to do even more of what it's been doing, which is leaning into that consumer even more, really understanding what are those unique signs and symbols and codes that your consumers really look for, that tell them that your brand is relatable, is the brand they want for them, because loyalty is going to become an issue. As there's so much in the market, consumers are going to be skipping around more and more, testing. But you want to make sure that you're touching them in the right places as well. The right media, the right channels with the right signs and symbols, so that your communication really gets to the heart of the matter. It's like, for example, if we take ourselves, relating to your grandmother is way different than relating to your younger sister, or your best friend, right? Each time you communicate with any of these entities, you use specific channels, you use specific language to make sure that they understand. These are the things that the small and medium-sized brands have to really lean into even more now, because of the consumer splintering, in order to make their communications really effective.
That's a great example, the very livelihood example. You're talking to your sister, your mother, your grandmother, everybody. Yes, we have in the reality, in the real world, we are connected with we wear different hats, and we communicate differently. So this is the best way to explain. I think very easy to understand how you should a company you should communicate differently. With the target group. It's an excellent point. That moves us to the final question today. Is what are the consumer trends do you foresee during the post-COVID-19 era?
Wow. Geez, that's a loaded question. So
that's a question everybody wants to know,
right? Yes,
that's a $1 million question.
That's the $1 million question.
Yes.
So okay, so we're in different parts of the world, we're slowly sort of coming out of getting used to some type of virus being around, COVID being the one that's top of mind right now. So in the United States, obviously, we are moving fast with the vaccinations. In Asia, they did not have that many cases, depending on where you were in Asia, like Taiwan, South Korea. So they've adapted and moved on. But I should also point out, in those countries, mask wearing is something that's a daily thing. It's not just for when a virus comes around. It is part of their lifestyle. Yes. So we have to take all those things into consideration. And across the world, there are different ways that countries are coming out of COVID. So to your question, what are those trends that are emerging that are potentially more universal, applicable, maybe around the globe or through most of the world? So there is obviously an increase in wellness, self-care, for sure. That's been building. It's even more so now because of all the stresses and anxiety that's coming with COVID. Whether you're a parent, you're taking care of your kids at home, whether you've had, unfortunately, many people in your family or friends be negatively impacted by COVID. There's a lot of stress in the world, joblessness, homelessness, that kind of stuff. There's also a focus on sustainability and paying more attention to the planet and exactly how we're using the planet or abusing the planet. So brands have become way more focused on sustainability. So that is also going to be on the rise. And of course, another big trend was the idea of catering to all beauty types, all ethnicities, skin types, but also, Cecilia, abilities. So the idea of creating packaging for those who are disabled with their hands or,
Mm.
with their eyes. So there's a rise
Wow.
in inclusivity in that aspect as well. So COVID has presented a fantastic or tremendous opportunity for artisanal brands, those small brands that consumers are looking for now to be even more personalized and customized in their treatments, whether that's makeup, skincare, accessories. Consumer focus is still on natural ingredients, but because of COVID, there's been a significant uptick in the belief in science and what science can do. So this is really clearing the way for a wider acceptance of hybrid products that spotlight natural plus science working together to elevate, safety. So more than ever, of course, everyone is, let me end this here. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Right now, everyone is really focused on safety and protection against obviously harmful germs, bacteria, viruses, etc. So in the short term, I think consumers will gravitate towards products that offer them protection, some measure of protection. And I'm not just talking sunscreen, but ingredients that both create a sense of wellness and have antibacterial properties. There is an increase, for example, in fragrance, but fragrance coming from ingredients that also offer antibacterial properties, like lavender, for example. I think those kinds of things will be on the rise. And then finally, this whole idea of contactless beauty product sampling, I think will continue to grow because people are becoming used to it. It'll be 2 years for the US, since COVID a year by the time 2022 comes around, 2 years, people will have gotten used to the idea of contactless engagement. I think that's going to continue. People are going to want little sample sizes to try out, to personalize things. And the silver lining in all of this is that post-COVID, there's going to be a huge boom for beauty products. Huge, huge, huge. Because in America, everyone's been wearing masks. The minute that mask mandate is removed, I believe that beauty products, skincare, and color cosmetics, makeup, women are just going to be, women, men, non-binary are going to be running to purchase, for self-expression, for enhancement, for freedom, for all these things that
celebrations.
Yes, exactly, that we felt deprived of.
Yes, yeah.
During COVID.
Yeah, so true, because in the past 1 year, I only bought one lipstick, only one, because it was Christmas time. I needed to have enough merchandise for free delivery. So I said, okay, throw in a lipstick. Yeah, so by the time we can get rid of the mask, it will be a great celebration and booming business for beauty.
Yes, I believe so.
True. Yes.
Yeah,
true,
and I think those smaller brands that are able to capture the zeitgeist, in terms of color, but not just any color, but color like, turmeric, like, colors that are coming from interesting global places that have sheen and shine and sparkle in tones, celebratory tones, I think is really going to be huge. The demand for that is going to be huge. This sort of to brighten up the world around us, and not just in our homes, but the idea of when we connect on Zoom, really
Yes.
bright, because that's our world now,
Yes.
and so when we think of it in that way, it's brightening up the whole world around us as the world is being redefined for us. And so I think for even more connection and engagement, makeup and skincare is going to play an even bigger role.
That's great. We can't wait for this day to come soon. Yes. Yeah, but so that actually really it's really inspiring, and also I really appreciate your insights that you share with us, and we will actually conclude the video interview today here, and we will make some edit and send you a proofread or proof viewing.
Sure, sure.
Yes. Before we publish and on our website. Yeah, I'm sure our subscribers will be very it will benefit them a lot, for them to hear this directly from you, an expert in marketing communication and trend setting. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you,
Great
Robin.
questions. I had a lot of fun answering them.
No,
And
I really, it's me too. I enjoyed this, not just interview, the conversation and hearing your insights. So it's very helpful it will be very helpful to the industry, those companies who are probably struggling right now, or, trying to figure out a way. So something for them to think about it. Yeah.
yeah, and then the one thing I before we go that I wanted to emphasize is that it's okay to pause. There's
Yes,
nothing that says that, oh my
absolutely.
God, you've got to keep the engine running until the
Right.
gas runs out. It's okay to pause, catch your bearings,
Mm-hmm.
and then figure out the best direction in which to go that suits your brand and
Yes.
your customer. I think it's very important that people recognize that, take a breath. We are coming out of this. The opportunities are tremendous, and it would be wise to identify those that will best benefit your brand,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to sort of just chasing, every new fad that comes up. Yes, there are definitely companies that do that and do that well, but to have a sustainable brand
Yes.
over time, I think it's worth it to just take a breath for a moment
That's
and
so
adjust your
true.
GPS.
No, so true, so true. This does not only apply to a business, also apply to person, that
Mhm.
sometimes you need to pause, and it's a great piece of wisdom. Yes, for sure. And I know you're in New York City.
Yes.
I'm here on Long Island in the Nassau
Uh-huh.
County. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, so when the COVID situation gets better, I would really love to meet you in person. Maybe we can have lunch together, or
Yes,
when I come to the
definitely.
city. Yes,
Yeah,
and
I would love that. I would
and to,
absolutely love that.
then
Yeah.
I definitely want to continue our conversation and to pick your brain.
No worries, no worries. You can reach out anytime.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, and thank you, Robin. And we wish you stay healthy and
Yes,
well,
thank you.
and then we keep in touch.
Yes, thank you. Thanks very
Okay.
much.
Okay. Thank
Bye.
you.